Dinesh, the Spicy Gourmet. Welcome back to my kitchen as we celebrate a very important day in hopefully all our lives, which is Father's Day. I am celebrating my father and his inspiration, which is how I came to do all this. He loved spices, he loved cooking with spices, and I somehow held on to that and it grew. So this is for your father and it's for mine. I hope you honor your father by making this very special dish. This is a non-traditional shepherd's pie, also known as a cottage pie. Ingredients very simple. We have ground meat. Now this could be beef, lamb, or pork. I prefer beef or lamb. In this instance, we're going to prepare the shepherd's pie with ground beef. We have onions. We have peas. We have garlic, of course, salt, pepper, and this is the unusual preparation aspect of it, which is Ceylon roast, the Ceylon roast blend or the Ceylon roast curry powder. First thing we need to do is to brown the meat. And we simply do that by, and I'm going to use a wok. You may use a deep pan depending on the quantity of meat you use. And the browning process is simply, without adding anything except perhaps salt and pepper, browning the meat. I'm going to place this in the wok, and I'm going to break it up, like so. Turn it around frequently as we brown the ground meat. Now it should really crumble. And it's going to take a little while, a little patience. Once this gets to a certain consistency, or it's broken up into smaller pieces, I'm going to be adding the salt and pepper. Okay, so as you can see, I've gotten the beef browned, or whatever you might be using. Brown it in this manner so it's crumbly. Excuse my hands. It crumbles like that, okay? So that's the next step. Now what we're going to do is, using the same wok in this instance, I'm going to stir fry the onions. Now there is some fat in the ground beef. It's important that you use ground beef or ground meat with some fat in it. It certainly adds to the flavor, and it helps combine the ingredients with the spices. You stir fry the onions. Now if there isn't enough fat in the wok to stir fry the onions, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit from the ground meat. Hey, Dad's going to love this. So we want to cook the onions, stir fry them until they're kind of translucent and soft. And once that has happened, I would add the garlic. Continue to stir fry it. Now I mentioned the mashed potato because that's an ingredient I forgot to share with you, but it's an essential part. It is a shepherd's pie, and a shepherd's pie typically has a layer of ground meat and then mashed potato on top, because once we get to a certain point, once the ground meat is prepared, we're going to layer the top with the mashed potato, and then we're going to bake it, just like Dad did. Here we are. The onions are ready. Now we're going to add the ground beef to this. So I know this seems like an awful lot, but we're making a big shepherd's pie. So we add the ground beef to the onions and the garlic. We're going to stir it just a tad. And now we're going to add our Ceylon roast or Ceylon curry powder. Sprinkle it on there like that. Once again, stir it. Now we're going to let it cook. Now, if you recollect, there was another ingredient, which are our green peas. What we're going to do with that, so as to not to overcook it, because it'll get cooked, we're going to add that last. I'm using frozen peas, so they really don't need a lot of cooking. As a matter of fact, I prefer them not cooked at all. But in this particular application, it goes in with the ground beef rather, and other ingredients. So I'm going to add it last. Some salt and some pepper. Now, if you really want to spice this up, you can, of course, add some cayenne, which my dad, I'm sure, did. So I hope, as I demonstrate this for you and make this together, that you will prepare this for your dad. There we are. So we're going to let that cook. As you can see, you know, I mentioned the fat content of the meat. It's important for the flavor. And I believe I prefer making it in this particular dish, or preparing the ground meat and the other ingredients in a wok, because one of the things that I'm trying to avoid is to have too much liquid or moisture in the ground beef. This allows for evaporation, so never close it. Let it cook, let the liquid evaporate. It'll maintain its moisture. I believe it needs a tad bit more of the secret ingredient. Oh yeah, now I can smell the Ceylon roast. And we're going to let this cook like this for a few minutes. And then we will add the peas, and then we'll move on to our next step. While this is cooking, I'm going to mash the potatoes and complete that process. So the ground meat is cooked. I'm going to add the peas. And not really cook it for too much longer, because we are going to bake this, so obviously it'll cook. And just being in the heat like this will cook it instantly, pretty much. Now, in the event you're wondering, how do you know when the meat is cooked? You simply taste it, see if it's cooked. And really, because temperatures vary so much with whether you're using a wok or a pot or crock pot, it's difficult to say. So because this is not so crucial, all we need to do is taste it. So that's done. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the ground beef carefully into this baking dish. And so this is the bottom of the shepherd's pie. And of course, as you know, the top is going to be mashed potato. Now, I much prefer to have more ground beef, in this case ground beef, or whatever you may be using, as the thicker part of this layer. And some people prefer a lot more mashed potato. There we go. Now I want to make sure it's even, and right into the corners. Otherwise, the person who's going to get one of the corners is going to be cheated out of ground meat. So you don't want that to happen, because it might be dad. You don't want it to be dad, because this is for dad. Yeah. Now let me see. A little bit more. There we are. Now comes the next step, which is the mashed potato. Does that look wonderful? There we go. Now the mashed potato, this is a little tricky because I'll push this away here a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. This is a little tricky because what you want to do is you want to be gentle with it. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently place some mash on top. Now this mashed potato I actually seasoned with salt and pepper, and the secret to mashed potato, I'm sure you already know, is lots of butter. So butter being the main ingredient here. Place it like that. Yeah, I spilled a little bit. There we go. Now we're going to gently smooth this over like this. Okay, so I've layered the mash on top of the ground beef, and now I'm going to take my fork here and gently create some ridges, which is kind of important because what occurs when you do this is the top, as you bake it, the top of the ridges brown, and it adds an additional taste and also makes it look really pretty. There we go. So a little decorative thing going on here. And then finally, before we put it in the oven, what I'd like to do is I'd like to sprinkle it with some paprika. Again, more flavor. This is a non-traditional shepherd's pie because my dad made it. And if you knew my dad, he was not very traditional. So here we go. It's a private joke. So as you can see, you know, it takes a little time to layer the mash, and you need to take care of it so that the two doesn't mix while you're layering it, meaning the ground meat and the mash doesn't really get pulled together. So you do it carefully. You take your time doing it because it is for your dad. So here we are. We're going to put this in the oven, and we'll see how it looks and taste it once it's done. So I'll see you in a little bit. Well, there we are. It's been in the oven, and look how it's nice and crispy on the ridges that we created by trailing a fork over the top of the mashed potato. And I've kind of dressed it here with some parsley. It looks absolutely fabulous. I'm sure your father, your dad would love this. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to plate it. Basically, it's a case of, now it's going to be a little soft. It's best to let it cool so it kind of consolidates. Yeah. We're going to plate this like so. Clean it up. We're going to dress the plate with some green onions, a little bit of parsley, And we're going to sprinkle some paprika on top of this. And then we have it. There we are. That is our special dish in celebration of Father's Day. So here's to your dad, my dad, and fathers everywhere as we honor them on this very special occasion, which is Father's Day. Now, if you'd like to present the Spicy Gourmet Complete Spice Blending Collection to your dad, we're making a special offer here. If you go to thespicygourmet.com, add this very special product to your cart, and enter the coupon code, the promo code, which is DAD30. That's DAD30. You will get 30% off this particular collection, okay? So that's my offer to you, and I hope you have a wonderful Father's Day, and I hope you enjoy your time with them. I'm Dinesh, the Spicy Gourmet. Until the next time, cheers.